Hi guys, it's Becky, and today I'm going to be doing one of my very favorite things to do with art, and that is to make a wearable piece of art with some jewelry, and then some art that you can put on your wall and look at with my watercolor. And I'm going to use the same color palette for both. It's something that I started doing, just a silly little thing, and surprisingly and just bafflingly, many of you enjoy watching it, and so I'm doing it every now and again. If you want to see more of these, I put together a little playlist with watercolor or painting as the playlist. I'll put a link in the description if you want to see more of these activities. But basically what I do is I'm going to go over my materials and what I'm doing, and then I will start a watercolor painting. And because it's watercolor, there's always a period of time that you've got to wait for it to dry before you can go back in and do more details. And they're just silly little paintings that, like, they're low stakes, easy to do, nothing that's gonna, take days and days to finish. But they bring me joy, and hopefully they bring you guys joy too. And so because there's time that needs to be taken for stuff to dry, while it's drying, I'm gonna make jewelry. And so I'm going to be doing a necklace using my Gemstone Orphanage adoptee, Kirsi, and the Dress It Up box that they sent it with in order to make a necklace, something pretty. We're gonna do a bail, and then we're gonna string some strings on, or some beads on some wire, and we're gonna make a little necklace with this. And then the painting that I'm going to be doing is just a winter landscape scene. So for paint, I'm going to be using my Sennelier palette. I'm going to be using 3 colors of Sennelier, and I'll go over that when we start the painting. For brushes, I'm using my Artegria brushes because they're actually really great, and I really like them. I'll put a link to their Amazon listing in the description if you wanted them. They are inexpensive, but they are very high quality, and I like using them. I'm using around 10 for my washes. I've got around 0 here that I'm going to use for some detail work. And then I've got this Emma Lefebvre number 4 filbert from Craftimo. And I'm going to be using this for my trees because I can get varying widths of tree branches with this, and I can also turn it on its side for lines, and it's going to be really convenient for that. So those are the brushes that I'm using, and we'll go over the paints when we do that. Using my Bao Hong sketchbook. It is 100% cold pressed, and I've got it taped and ready to go when we finally get started with our painting. So one other item that I'm going to be adding for painting is I'm going to be adding a little bit of opaque white gouache, and that's just part of the detail that I'm going to go back into after it dries to add some snow to my trees, because it's a little harder to add snow without going back in and like adding some of that. So I've just got some Lucas gouache. It's not the best gouache in the world, but it'll do. So that's what I'm using for painting. For my necklace, I went back and forth quite a bit on what kind of bail I wanted on this. Now there is a bail that comes in the kit, and it's a pinch bail. It's really convenient that it came with that. And I kind of decided like 2 days ago that I was going to use this instead of some of the other methods. And then yesterday I just completely changed my mind, and I decided I wanted to do a beaded bail. Doing some really simple bead weaving with some of these beads in order to get it onto there. I'm going to be using this tubing that came with it. There is a findings kit that comes with this Gemstone Orphanage thing. I'm going to use the lobster clasp that came with it. Most of this came with my gemstone, but we're going to pull these beads out and we're going to do some stringing, and I want to keep it mostly beads, not that many findings. And I've got these 11 seed beads that I thought would add to what we've got here, and I'm going to be using some of these in my bead weaving design, and I might throw them into the stringing part to make it more cohesive, first of all, and also as little spacers. And it's just this frosted green, transparent frosted olivine 11-Os. They're Tohos. And then these ones are gold lined frosted. And the reason I went with these gold line ones is because they've got kind of a warmth to them. And a lot of these other beads, they've got a golden warmth to them. They're not white. And that's really important. And one of the colors that stands out with all of this, because if you look at this stone, it has white, but it's also got that golden warmth. And just take a minute and just look at this. It is beautiful and gorgeous. And it makes me think of, you know, when you've got parts of like the mountains where you get multiple layers of snow all throughout the winter, but then you've also got wind that carves through and along, so you get snow drifts with different stratuses and different layers. And that's what this makes me think of, especially this curved shape, the beautiful windswept shape that this is. And I mean, like I said, I went back and forth on what different types of bails I might do with it. Pinch bail would be great. It keeps it simple. It makes it so that the rest of the necklace kind of shines. I also thought about doing some wire wrapping and doing a wire wrapped bail, but I worried that that might detract from this very simply beautiful, just on its own, stone that I've got here. So that's why I decided to do a bead woven bail. There was a little while where, like, for about 2 weeks, I planned on doing a butterfly style bail where you do a peyote stitch square and then fold the corners down and then it stands out like that. And I just thought, no, that's going to be too much. That's just almost going to be overpowering for this. So we're going to do a simple bead woven bail. It's going to be pretty easy to do. It's not going to take us very long, and we'll do that. And because we're doing a bead weaving bail on here, I went ahead and I found these on Amazon. And I'm going to try them out for the first time today because most of my beads are light in color, and I'm going to be using a light beading thread for this. I'm using 4-pound crystal Fireline. I'm going to use this for my bail. I want it to show up on camera better, so I want this dark background of my desk to be behind it while I'm doing it so you guys can see it better. And that's why I pulled this out, was so I can have my beads in here. I'm not sure if I'll like this or not because it's got the stiff felt in it, and I don't enjoy beading off that surface, but I enjoy beading off of hardwood even less. So we're going to do that so that I've got the dark background behind us so you guys can see the thread as I'm doing it. And I just wanted to explain that that's why we're doing it here. When it gets to the stringing part, I'm probably going to pull out my beading mat for that. So just letting you know, it's just the bead weaving part that I want you guys to be able to see. So we've got this dark background. So let me move these guys out of the way because we're going to now change gears now that I've talked about a little bit about my equipment. Oh, you know, I didn't finish talking about my equipment, what I'm using. Because I'm bead stringing, did I already mention this? I'm using the white quartz beading wire. I'm going to be using that for my stringing. I've got some 2x2 crimp tubes here, and I'll be using my magical crimper for that because it's just so much easier for me. And I'll be using my flush cutters for cutting that. This is, for the most part, my tools. I'm also going to be using a wide-eye beading needle for my bead weaving because I am getting better at threading regular English style beading needles, but it is still so much easier for me and faster for me to thread this beading needle. It just goes right in the eye and the eye collapses. If you're more comfortable with a English style beading needle, you can do this this bail with that with no problems. But you know, if you're new to bead weaving and you're intimidated by the tiny eye of the needle, getting some of these white eye needles it really helps like be able to break you into it and to be able to get to the actual part of it without having to spend like an hour trying to get a piece of thread into a very tiny needle eye. So let's move these guys aside because we're going to pull out our paint and we're going to talk about our paint colors. And then we're going to getting into that. All right, I've got a little dish here that I can put my paint colors into in order to make a wash. I've got my sketchbook here that we're going to be painting on. And let's just talk about the colors that I'm using. Remember just now I was telling you all about this warm golden glow that you've got in this stone. So because we've got that warm golden glow, I'm going to be using Quinacridone Gold. When you paint snow, mostly you're going to be having the white of the page be the snow color for the most part, and you just define where the snow is by painting shadows. And Payne's Gray, the Sennelier Payne's Gray, is a great color for shadows, so I'm going to be using that. And I also love, love, love the forest green color in the Sennelier L'Aquarelle. Now the Payne's Grays, they can vary from one brand to another, and even within the same brand, they can absolutely vary. And I'm just painting a stripe of plain water here underneath each of these colors so that I can drop the color in and you can see it move, and we'll dilute it because I'm going to be using really light values of both of these. They're not going to be full strength. I am going to use all the values, full strength and not, of the forest green though. So let's just grab a little bit of our Quinacridone Gold, or Quin Gold, and I'm just going to plop some of that in here in my mixing tray and then drag it along here and spread it down into my line. And you can see all the different values of that. It's a nice golden yellow. It's not a bright yellow. It's not an overpowering yellow, but it is a warm golden glow that you can have maybe with a sunrise. And that's the idea behind my painting, is we're having a wintry sunrise. So we're going to have some of this golden glow on our snow and in the sky. And then our Payne's Gray. Where's my Payne's Gray? There it is. Put some in here. It is a cool leading gray. And like I was saying, Payne's Gray, even within some of the same brands, might be different. This is the professional series of watercolor, the L'Aquarelle. They have a student brand grade series of watercolors. It's La Petite Aquarelle, and I'm just gonna tap this real quick and show you real quick that it is actually a little more blue leaning, the La Petite Aquarelle, than the professional. And it's because they use a different pigments for it. It's a different formula of those, and that's why Payne's Gray can differ from one brand to another. So that's more blue leaning, but I want this nice more gray. It's still a cool gray, but I want that for my shadows, for a little bit of my sky, and that's what we're going to be using on our snow. And then one of the best things about this box was the winter theme wasn't just blues and whites. We had our greens, our like our winter, our evergreen trees, because that is another color of winter, is that delicious, delicious forest green for pine trees that you can see with this. And I'm just gonna grab a whole bunch of this and put it in here. I'm gonna be using stronger and less strong values of this color, so I'm just gonna put a lot in there in my little mixing tray, and then I can set this aside so that it's not taking up a lot of desk space here. let me just sit while I was talking. My my little thing of water kind of blended out. And so these colors, as you can see, they are very much, especially if you're looking at this value here, they are very much sort of the same colors and the same values that we have in here. And that's why I like doing paintings, is because then I can take some of these colors and I can grab the paint and I can make something with some of these same colors and some of these same shades. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have some happy little trees. We're going to have a little mountain. We are going to go through that with our painting. So let's switch over to our actual painting page. Let me grab my wash brush. I've got a rinse water and then I've got my clean water. So I'm just going to move my clean water a little closer so I can get to that a little easier. And you can sketch this out if you're following along with me. I'm just going to go with something in my head. Again, it's a low stakes kind of a thing that I've got in my head. I did a little bit of a test painting, but basically I'm going to want a little curve, slight curve along here, and it's going to be just a meadow outside of the trees with some snow and some little snow drifts in here, and we'll define the snow drifts when we get to it. And then there's going to be a line of trees that go kind of like this and then out, kind of like a bow tie. There's going to be a few mountains in the background, and then we're going to have our sky. So one of the reasons I wanted to use this round 10 is because it comes to a good point at the end, and I'm going to use that to outline my mountain shapes. Again, you can sketch it if you want to. Put the mountains anywhere you want. I'm going to have a mountain in the distance here, another mountain coming through here, and I'm just putting this water where I want my mountains to go, and that way when I add my wash, the water will stop here where I'm putting them. All right, there we go. So now I can get my sky going back here. And because I'm going to be using really light values, I'm going to start with wet on wet. What is that? A little bit green. And this is just clean water from my clean water jar. And then we'll add our yellow glow. And I want my sun to be here, so I'm just going to do a little circle around this spot. You can see that, and I'm not going to cover that with any water because this is a sunrise, and that way, actually no, let's have our sun be over here, and that'll give us kind of a different, that way the light will be coming this way and we can have our shadows move toward us this way. All right, yeah, I just made a decision. So we're going to have it be a little more yellow and golden on this end of our page and a little bit grayer over here on this end. So let's start with our Quin yellow. And like I said, it's going to be a really, really, really light wash. So I'm just adding more water and more water into this area so that I can pick up a little bit on my already wet brush. And I'm just tapping it so that it's not sopping wet. And I'm going to circle around that blank spot that I had on the sky and just paint in this yellow. And you can see it stopping when it gets there to the little mountain part, the edge of that mountain. That's how we define where the mountain stops and starts and the sky begins. So we've got that going over here on this side. It's just the faintest glow, just the faintest bit of warmth. And now I'm going to grab just a little bit of my shadow color, my Payne's gray, and I'd like this in the sky. You know, when you wake up in the morning and you still have that gray sky on one side, and you've got that tiny bit of glow coming in right at you from the other. And I want some of this gray to come right up next to where the mountain is. Again, we're defining the mountain by adding a little more color right there and then letting it kind of dissipate away from us. And this is just going to be a smaller mountain way, way off in the distance. It's fine because we still want that sky. So now I've got my sky. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the way when you've got a color that the light is, if you got like pink light or orange light or yellow light from like a sunset or a sunrise, and you look at that light on the snow, all of the snow will glow that color. It won't just be little highlights. And so I wanted to avoid little highlights of yellow here on the snow, because that's going to end up looking a little bit more like somebody couldn't find the bathroom while they were out for a hike in the snow. So I'm going to take, again, this very, very, very light Quin Gold right here, and I'm going to define my snow a little bit right here. We're still going to have a little bit of this golden glow down here in our foreground snow. So it's still white snow. It's just reflecting that golden light. All right, and we're just leaving that line. That's going to be our tree line. We'll paint over that. It'll be fine. But I also want to take this time to kind of add a little bit of detail on these mountains by painting not all the way up to the edge, just a little bit of the mountain where we have the light hitting it. We're going to add shadows in a little bit. Usually with mountains and where you've got the light, it's because of a ridge. There's a ridge where you've got some light, and so I'm going to be putting in shadows and the rest of it, and I'm just going to blend this down almost to my tree line. That's actually going to be off in the distance, so we're going to have a few more shadows. We don't need that to be totally white. All right. And because this is going to be mostly in shadow, I'm not going to worry too much about where the light's hitting it on that one to make it a little yellower. Also, a lot of this mountain is going to be obscured by our trees. But I do want to get this wet so that I can start a little bit of tree action with our green. All right, so trees in the distance are going to be very light. You're not going to see them as easily. So I'm just picking up, got a really wet brush, and I'm just picking up a teeny bit of this, and I'm just going to drop it along here. It's not going to be, this is off in the distance, far away from where we are. A little bit brighter in here. They don't have to even look like trees. They can just be little splotches off in the background, because we are going to do more defined trees closer in and closer up. When we do this, they're just splotches traveling through our wet spots. That's all these are. Because they're off in the distance. Now, most of this is still wet. So this is the part where I'm going to let all of this dry completely. And then, after it has dried completely, we're going to go in and we're going to paint our trees, we're going to paint our snowdrifts, and we are going to get more shadows on our mountains, and that's what we're going to do. So let me put these to the side so they can dry, and we'll start making our necklace. Are you guys ready? So this is where we're at right now. It looks a little bit of a mess, but again, you can see it glistening. It is still wet. So I'm going to let it dry, and then when we come back, we're going to add more details. This is just the first wash. That's all. All right, jewelry making time. I love doing this, and it tickles me to no end that y'all enjoy doing this with me. Hold on. I just had a beading needle, and it disappeared when I was moving stuff around. How did that happen? Whoa. Hey, Becky, take your paintbrush out of your water. Don't leave it in there, because leaving your paintbrush in the water will expand the wood, and then when it dries it'll shrink, and then you'll have loose ferrules, and it'll be crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, we've got our little guy here, and I am going to be putting the bail on a piece of this rubber, and then we'll be beading up outside of the other side of the rubber. So for this bail, I am going to be using some of these 11-0s. It is gold lined, frosted 11-0s. And I'm just spilling these out into this section here. I'm not going to use all of these. This doesn't use very many seed beads. Just letting you know, it's a really quick, really easy bail. It uses mostly right angle weave, which is fairly simple and fairly easy to follow. You may have done right angle weave with me before. Just a real quick refresher with my notebook here. Let's draw this out a little bit. Right angle weave is where you have like 4 beads or 8 beads or something that's going to form a square, and your thread comes through one bead and then through the next bead and the next bead and the next bead and then back through this one, and it makes a little circle and it tightens it up and it makes it into basically a square of beads. And then you go back through it, and when you come out of here, this is 4 beads, you're going to have another 4 beads. But this one, it counts as the same for those 4. So you come out of here and you go through here and through here again. And then you add more beads. And the fun thing about it is that you don't have to do it with just 4 beads. You could have 4 beads and then 2 small ones and a big one, and go through there that way, and then 2 small ones and another big one, and go through there. And that's what we're going to be doing today, is we're going to be changing the size and number of our beads as we go through our right angle weave. So that's just to give you an idea of where I'm going, where I'm starting, and how we're going to finish it. And because we're using different sizes of beads, I'm only going to be using a few of these, but I am going to be using some of the beads from in here for my right angle weave as well. I'm going to grab 2 of these crystal rondelles, and I'm using the kind of forest green color with an AB finish. It's more of a peridot almost. No, it's not light enough to be a peridot. And then we've got some garnet, or no, wait, garnet, and then I think these are aventurine. I'm just going to grab 2 of these out of here because these are some smaller beads. They're bigger than our 11-Os, but they are smaller than these guys. So we're going to go 3 steps up, 3 steps down. And that's where we're going to make our bail a little bit bigger and give it some body as we go through there. I'm also going to be using some of these small 4mm opaly beads. And I'm going to need to grab, let's see, I think I need 4 of these. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because we're going to do some, 1, 2, oh, I'm going to need 5 of these. No, wait, that's wrong. 8. So, oop. So these are very small. I'm sorry, I'm doing math in my head. Like, I'm visualizing it, I practiced it, so I know what I'm doing with it, but that's where we're going on this. So we have some of these warm glow opalescent guys, and they've got that matte finish on them. We have some sparkly shiny green guys. We've got matte or frosted glass seed beads in 2 different colors, and we're going to go ahead and make our bail for this using my crystal color fire line. And I'm just going to pull off, you could probably just do an arm's length where you hold this to your chest and then you grab this end and pull it out to the side. I'm just going to roll off a little bit more than that just to be sure I've got enough for reinforcing at the end of it, because it is always a good idea to reinforce. And you'll want to use some scissors to cut your fire line. I forgot to mention this in my tools. Any scissors will do as long as it cuts. Sometimes fire line can be a little bit hard to cut if you're using dull scissors. But these ones that actually, they came in my Casual Comfort one, I found them to be really, really great for cutting my beading thread. So I'm glad that that came in my thing. And you know what? I did lose. I was looking for it, and let me just pull out another one. The wide-eye beading needle. I had it stuck in here, and then it's not there anymore. I'm pretty sure it's not on the floor. This is not the kind of needle that you want to step on. It's on my desk somewhere, and I will find it when I'm cleaning it. So I can put these guys back in here, and we can get started. So to start, I'm going to need 4 seed beads. And these are going to be the start of my, it's going to be the start and the finish of my bail on both sides of the hole. All right. So I'm going to grab 2, 3. Okay. I'm trying to plan how that's going to be because I want, where am I going to start it? I'm going to start here at the bottom and then go around. So I'm going to want 2 white ones, 1 green one, and 1 white one. Two white, 1 green, and 1 white, like that. And you can put a stop bead on here. I'm not going to, because my first round is going to kind of act as a stop bead, as a stop bead. These 4 will be there. I'm leaving myself enough thread at the end that I can weave it in. If I'm holding this pinched between my 2 fingers and it hits my wrist, then I know it's long enough. That's just how I know. If you need to measure it, you can do that. Now I'm just going through the first 2 seed beads and this green seed bead. We are going to be reinforcing this, so I'm not going to go through this twice because we're going to come back and do more reinforcing. But at the end of the day, should make a little bit of a square with our beads. Like that. And you know what? I might need to move this aside because there may be too much going on my desk and we might be going in and out of focus. I'm going to move that aside and I'm going to scooch a little bit closer so that we're just looking at the bead weaving. All right, so next step, I am going to pick up 2 of my white seed beads, 1 of the faceted banded agate rounds. These are they're 4 millimeters, but they're like a little bit smaller, like 4 by 3. 1 of these, it's my smaller gemstone beads, and 2 of my white seed beads. And I'm trying to be really careful because one of the reasons why I don't like using a surface with this stiff felt is because when you go to pick up a bead, if the tip of my needle touches the felt grabs it and it swings it like that, and then I've got beads everywhere. And for that reason, I might not use this again. If you are good at picking things up off the hard felt, though, it might be a good purchase for you, but I think I'm deciding that it's not going to end up working for me. But this is what I've got, and I've got my thread coming out of my green seed bead going in this direction. So I'm going to sew in the same direction so it forms a circle. It makes a loop around once I pull the thread taut. Now I've got my next little section, and we're just starting small, going to a little medium section, and then we're going to have a large section on top, and then another medium section, and then a small section, and that's just how our bail is going to go. Like I said, it's really quick, really easy. If you've done any sort of right angle weave, you're going to understand it really quickly, really easily. If you're new to bead weaving, it is, because it's such a small and quick project, it might be a good place to start, especially if you haven't done right angle weave. It's a good way to sort of learn how it goes. So I'm going through, I went up this side and then through my green bead because I want to be coming out of my green bead. It's my one that's furthest to the side, and it's going to be the first bead in my next circle. So for my next circle, and I kind of just decided that I'm not going to be using these crystal beads for this next section because I want to use the banded agate for most of my necklace. I'm going to be using, for my green bead right here in the middle, one of the larger faceted agate beads. It is, I think, 4 by 6. And I picked one out that had some striping because when it sits, that striping is going to be vertical, which is the same direction a lot of the striping goes in this. So it's going to kind of go just a little bit. It's going to echo that slightly when we're doing our little guy. So next part, this next section, I'm going to add some white sides, my green guy, and then the white sides, and go back through here. So for my white sides, I've got a white 11-0, one of these opalite rounds and a white 11-0 like that. And I'm going to pick up my larger faceted banded agate, and that way it's just kind of a cohesive color for the whole necklace, rather than having this sort of not quite the same green and not quite the same thing just popping out there right in the middle of my thing. So it was just a decision I made right now while I was making this. I was like, wait a minute, no, I want to do this. So I've got another, I've got my white side, I've got my middle green bead, and now I need to add more for my white side. So it's the white 11-0 and opalite. I know I'm a little bit all over the place with my just instruction today, and I apologize for that. But here we go. This is the order of beads that I've got loaded onto my needle, and I'm coming out of this green bead going from right to left, so I'm going to go into it from right to left again, follow the same thread path. And I'm trying hard to stay in frame, guys. All right, so now I need to go travel up one of these sides, and we're going to reinforce all of these sides. There's some gaps here. We're going to be filling those in with some other seed beads as we reinforce. So there's a little gap here. I'm going to add some seed beads there, some here. But for the most part, I just need to move my thread to the next part of my work. So I'm going to go up through this side. It's okay if it's loose while you're sewing into it, because you just pull your thread in a minute and it'll tighten up a little bit. So we went from small to big, and now we're going to go back down from big to small. So for this next section, my sides are going to be the same, but my green bead is going to be different. Instead of this larger agate bead, I'm going to use the smaller agate. So I'm going to pick up the same sides that I've got here, the white seed bead, the opalite, the white seed bead, and we're going to pick up our smaller faceted round, if I can find the hole. There it is. And then another white seed bead, an opalite, and a white seed bead. Oof, it's doing that thing where it grabs onto the thing and it, boy. Yeah, this isn't good. I'm not going to be using this for very much longer. I'm going to be switching over to my other mat for stringing, and things will go a lot smoother. I just really needed this dark background so you guys can see my beads and my thread a little bit better. All right, so I've got these guys. I'm going to go through my green bead in the same direction that my thread is already going. So back in the opposite side of where it's coming out of. Whoop, where you going, buddy? There we go. So see how it's going to taper? It gets bigger, and then it's going to taper and get smaller on the other side. Going up through the side again. And again, when I reinforce it, it won't be as wobbly. So I've come up this side. I need to be exiting the green bead. It's one of the fun things about using different colors for the outside and the inside when you do this, is it makes it a little bit easier for you to remember where your thread needs to be coming out of for your next step. So for this one, I'm going to be doing the 2 seed beads, a green seed bead, and 2 seed beads. Because it's just like this one, but going in the opposite direction. So 2 11-ohs, sorry, 2 of the white 11-ohs, 1 green 11-oh. Please get on my needle without drama. There we go. And I hate that my needle is getting caught on this felt. It is so frustrating, but I'm suffering so you don't have to. All right, so I've got these guys on here. I'm going to go through my green bead right here, the same direction that my thread is already going, so it's coming out of the left side, so I'll go into the right side. And then we go down this little guy here. And I want to end with 1 or 3 of the white seed beads. I've got to come out of my green seed bead before I add more seed beads. All right, and then I'm going to pick up my 3 white seed beads. Please no drama, guys. I don't need you going everywhere. Oof. There's a lot of people that I know, when they go to pick up seed beads, they slide the needle through the pile. If you do that on this felt, you are gonna have a bad time, because there will be seed beads everywhere when it catches on the felt and it goes flying. I can promise you. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the felt. I'm not gonna recommend it. I'm just not gonna recommend it. Not a fan. All right. There we go. It was useful for this demonstration, but boy, is it frustrating. All right, now I'm going to want to be exiting my little seed bead here at the tip for the next step, because the next step is going to be connecting both sides, both ends of this bail through my gemstone. So I'm going to be folding both of these ends together around the gemstone, and I'm going to go through the hole in the gemstone to connect it, to adhere it, and we're going to go through it a couple of times when we're doing our reinforcing. So let me grab my gemstone. Let's grab our guy here. So I'm coming out of this seed bead over here on the, if this is left and this is right, I'm coming out on the left side of this seed bead. So when I go through the gemstone to the other side, I'm going to want to go into the left side of my bottom seed bead. So I'd like the end with my tail to be at the back, for no other reason than, like, just in case, like, the knot shows or something like that, it's going to be at the back of my gemstone. So let's see if I can do this without dropping everything. You know what? Let's just go through the hole, because I can pick that up on the other side. I don't need to hold it in place yet. Not yet. Not until it gets a little bit tauter. Okay. So I'm going to go through the same side as we're coming out of on this side. I've switched things around, so I'm looking at the back of it. It's coming out of this right side. So I'm going to go in through the right side of this one. Now that I've gone through my gemstone, when I tighten this up, it should put it right back on there. Bloop. Bloop. Bail. All right, now I'm coming out of this side of my seed bead. I'm going to go back through my gemstone and sew through the opposite side of my seed bead on the other side, so that we have 2 passes of thread through the gemstone. We're going to have 2 more passes through the gemstone and through these seed beads for structure's sake and for stability. I'm sorry, I was moving out of there. Okay, so I went through the gemstone again. I haven't gone through another seed bead. This one went in and out through both sides on that side. So on this side, I just want to look at my thread. It's coming out of this side of my seed bead. So I'm going to go in the opposite side, and that should straighten these seed beads out on both sides so they're not all wonky and weird. I can move my tail out of my way. Oof. All right. So here's where we're going to start. Do you see that? Here's where we're going to start reinforcing. So I am going through this seed bead. I'm going to travel up the outside of the bale all the way around to the back. And I'm going to go through just my white beads. And every time I come to a gap, I'm going to fill that in with another seed bead. So I'm going through this next white bead, and there's a little gap here between this white bead and the next one. So I'm going to grab another seed bead, and I am going to fill that gap in. I'm going to pull it tight because I want this to be secure. So let's pick up a white seed bead and go through these next two seed beads here. Why are you like this? Come on, buddy. There we go. Through these next two. There we go, and that fills that in right there. And then there's a little gap here. So I'm going to pick up another white seed bead and go through all three of these beads up the side. 1, 2, 3. So we're filling in that gap. There's a little gap right here. So you guessed it, one white seed bead to fill in that gap, and we're going to go back down through all three of these next beads, the seed bead, the opalite, and the seed bead. Well, you know, I can't get my needle through all three of those because of some curvature, so I'm just going to go through what I can and then go through this next one. All right, and we've got another gap. Mind the gap. So I'm going to fill in the gap here. Whoop. And go through these two white seed beads. And this is going to give us more structure. It's not going to be as loosey-goosey. And it's going to give us a kind of a nicer, more cohesive edge on here. And then I've got one more gap before I go through both of these seed beads. I'm going to go through both of them there at the end. So I picked up one white seed bead, and I'm going to go through both of these seed beads here. All right, so this is my point on the back. And I'm coming out of the, if I'm holding it this way, the left side of this, which on the other side, if it's the same side, it's going to be the right side when I flip it over. So I'm going to go back through my pendant through the hole in here. So right through that with my beading thread. Right, and I am going to go through this bead one more time. Going in the same direction. All right, pull it tight. And now I'm going to go back through my gemstone one more time. And I'm coming out of this side. On here it's the left. So on this side I'm going to go through this from the right to the left, so that it is on the same side on the other side. Pull this tight. Oof. There we go. Pulling it tight. So from right to left, that sets me up to go up this side of my bail, because I just finished going down this side to reinforce it. I'm going to go up through the other side, adding beads where I need to, and reinforcing it by going through this bead one more time. Now we've done about 4, maybe 5 passes of thread through this bead. We shouldn't have to anymore. This is on here good. But I want to get the bail looking a little better, looking a little nicer over here on this other side. So I'm going to go up and go ahead and reinforce that. Just turning this over so that my upside is up here. I'm going to go through this one seed bead over here on the side. Why are you catching on everything? It's because I'm on camera, that's why. But also things like that also do it when I'm not on camera, so maybe it's me. And I have caught my my tail that I left in my thread. I'm just unpicking that so that it's not looped in there and being obnoxious. There we go. So I want my thread to go straight through and not be wrapped around this one. Now I need to fill in my spots. I've got my gaps. I'm going to fill in with my white seed beads. Like I said, it doesn't take very many seed beads. You can do this even if you've just got like a few of them. Like I only used 2 of the green ones. What? All right. Come on, buddy. Let's not fall down anymore. I feel like for some reason I just got really bad at this. But maybe I need to go have lunch. All right, so I've got another gap to fill in over here. So I picked up another seed bead and I'm going to go up through all 3 of these beads, the seed bead, the opalite, and the seed bead. And I have a gap to fill up here at the top between all of these so that I've got 3 beads between them. I only have 2 on this side. So let's pop this guy on here and then go back down through all 3 of these beads. 1, 2, 3. And if it's too curvy and you can't finagle your needle to go through all 3 of them, just go through the ones you can, like I'm doing. There you go. See, you've got a nice triptych up there. And then I'm going to go through this one that I couldn't get my needle into. I'm going to pull one more bead out here to fill in a gap. Go through these 2 seed beads over here on this side, and you are still being wobbly and uncooperative. All right, it's fine. Everything's fine. All right, because we still have a painting to finish, guys. All right, now I've got one more gap to fill. All right, and now I'm going to go back through. My bail is finished, but I'm going to go back through my gemstone to the other side of the work. Ooh. All right, that is in there. And I'm going to go ahead and just tie a knot right here with my tail thread and this thread. And like I said, you don't need that much thread. I've got a bunch of thread left over that I can probably use for some other things. So I'm just going to snip right here. I'll keep keep that around for like, you know, an earring or something. That's about enough for like a really simple earring design. And to tie my thread, I'm going to tie an overhand knot and pull that tight, and then a double overhand. When you combine those two, it makes a surgeon's knot, which is fairly secure. Oh, there we go. And now I'm going to cut the threads. And I've got a couple of ends there. I'm going to burn them off real quick if I can find my lighter. What did I do with it? You know what? If it is not easily to hand, that means that I am going to do it later, and you guys don't have to worry about that. But now that I've got my bail, I can start putting together my necklace. So let's get a bead mat out now that we've got our bail here and we can see what we're doing. I'm going to scooch back just a little bit because you don't need all of the detail that we were using with that, and we can spread this out a little bit better. Now, I'm going to have a section of this tubing that is just the tubing right about here. I think this is going to be a long enough section. I like the curve that I've got here. And the curve, if you use wire, you can adjust the curve of your thing. I'm using beading wire, so the curve of the tubing is going to act a little bit more on the actual shape of this than it would if we were using what is it called? Beading wire, or sorry, craft wire would allow me to shape the tubing a little bit more. There we go. Just like that, all on its own. Now for the ends of the tubing, see it's hollow there, so we should be able to get our beading wire through there pretty easily. I'm gonna go ahead and string this onto my beading wire, and I'm gonna cut about 20 inches of beading wire. I'll probably not be doing like a 20-inch necklace. I just like having some leftover for crimping, for playing around, for having some options if like the design looks better with like an extra repeat of some beads, or if it's going to fit better. Just having a little extra. So about 20 inches of beading wire is going to be enough. And again, I'm using the white quartz medium beading wire. I'm just going to feed this through the end of this tubing, so it comes out the other side. You know, I almost just want to have the necklace be this without anything else, but we're going to add some greens. We're going to add our greens because the greens are glorious, and that's going to look really pretty with the rest of these. So they're included very thoughtfully in the findings pack for the Dress It Up part of the subscription. Oof. Open up, guys. These cord ends. And these cord ends have a little hole in them, and they will fit over the outsides of the tubing to give you a nice finished look to using this piece in your jewelry design. So I'm going to pop that onto my beading wire, and the open end, not the rounded end, is going to face towards the tubing so that I can just slide it right on there. And I'm going to pop this other guy on the other side, and I'm just going to be making up my bead stringing as I go. Just gonna go with what feels right, what I think looks good. I'm gonna pop these other ends that I'm not using in here. I am gonna use a lobster clasp for red closure. And since I'm making it up as I go, I'm gonna go ahead and stick a bead stopper on one end of this wire and just bead up one side of it. And everything that I do on one side, I'm going to set aside one of the beads that I'm using to use on the other side. Now, I think I'm going to pull out some of these larger, I want the matte opalite beads. I love the matte look of it. Let's do 4 of the 8mm. I'm going to pull out all of these 6 and 4mm guys here. So we've got those. So we've got our 6mm opalite beads over here. And we've got our 4mm. All right. And I want to use these because of that warmth that we get in this stone. These opalite beads have so much warmth in them. They are beautiful and gorgeous. And it's the same with these green beads, the banded agate beads. And I'm just going to grab mostly the matte ones for the banded agates. Just because there's so much matte going on here. I don't know that we need the faceted ones in here. I mean, maybe. Do we want sparkle? I think there might be enough sparkle as it is, actually, with the matte look. We'll do something with the shinier ones and some sparkle. Another project with those, I think. But yeah, I want the matte beads down here, because there were the ones that had the shinier side, and then there were the matte finish beads. And there were some of these smaller ones. I may pull out these smaller ones. I don't know. But I think what I want to do is start with, again, every one that I do on this side, I'm going to do on that side. I'm picking out ones that are kind of evenly matched. I'm going to start with these 8mm guys. Let's move you guys up here. Yeah. And then we'll do groups of 3 for the 6mm. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm making this up as I go. And then another one of these, groups of 3, and another one of these. 1, 2, 3. I'm just making sure that I'll have enough for both sides. And then we might just do the 4mm along the back. Let's see how far we get, how long this gets with just these beads for now, because we still need to paint some trees and do all of that, guys. It is gonna be a real long video, and I hope you guys are okay with that. I hope you don't mind spending some time with me. And I'm not going to be adding a lot of other findings to this. I don't want it to be like metal heavy metal. I'd like this to be just the stones really speaking to us. All right, so I've got these there. Now let's put our groups of 3 of the opalite. And then banded agate, another group of 3, 2, Ooh, getting chills looking at this. This looks really good. All right, so let's plop 5 of these guys on here. These are the 4mm ones. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh. I just remembered that I had these that I might have been thinking about using for spacers. Let's see. I'm just going to hold this up to my neck and see how much length I need on there. So now I'm going to switch things around. I think probably that was actually the 6mm, not the 4mm. We're gonna switch things around here and up the back of it. I'm going to do 3 of these green ones, 1, 2, 3, and 1 of these 4mm rounds, like that, and 3 of my seed beads, 1, 2, 3, and another 4mm. I'm just switching it up a little bit, changing things right there. One, 2, 3. I totally forgot that I had those seed beads. And we've got 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to check my length, see if that's where I want it after I put this on here. If it's close enough. Ooh, that is perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and crimp this end. Actually, before I crimp it, I'm going to go ahead and string the other side. So let me get the other side strung and then we'll go ahead and crimp this. Okay guys, I have finished beading both sides of my necklace and now it is time to add our closures. And I'm just gonna actually do this a little closer to the end of my wire so that when I cut off my excess, I'm not cutting off a ton of it and I have a little bit more, because like shorter lengths of beading wire are really useful for several different things out there. So I just put on my crimp tube and then I strung on my lobster clasp. This is if this is facing out. When I go to put it on, I like using the fiddly bits with my right hand. So on the right side when I'm wearing it, that's where I usually attach my lobster clasp. And that's just because I'm not great with my left hand. Just not good with doing things with my left hand. All right, I'm gonna slide this right about there. It's just a little bit of a loop. I'm just gonna see if this opalite will fit on 2 strands. If it doesn't, that's fine, because these crimps will hold it even if you cut it right next to the crimp. That's one of the reasons I really like them. And I use, it's my favorite magical crimper. just put the crimp inside of it. It has that concavity that turns it into a little ball. And I squeeze it, it makes it into a ravioli, and these little pointy bits, those are going to get rounded out when I change the angle that I'm crimping. I just rotate this to a different angle, and then crimp, and then another angle, and then crimp, and then another angle, and I crimp. And as it rotates, all of those pointy bits get rounded out, and it turns into a nice little crimp ball. I love it because then I don't have to mess with crimp covers. It takes a little bit of a learning curve to get it, but once you do, it's just like, why would you do it any other way? At least for me. And it holds. It's gonna be on there for a while. All right, now let's do the other side. I've got a little bit of a chain here. That lobster clasp came in the findings kit. The little bit of a chain is one that I put together with some jump rings. All right, now I want to make sure that it's not going to be too stiff. So let's curl up my necklace a little bit before I crimp it. All right, so that's going to give it enough movement that it'll go. And I'm just going to show you how I crimp it. On the second side, I had some of my friends say that that's the part that they always have trouble with the magical crimpers, is the second end. Like the first end is just fine, but it's the second end that gives them trouble. And I think part of the trouble is if you try to crimp it too close to your beads, you can't really work around it very well, and it's going to be difficult. So what I do is when it's right up here next to my beads like that, I take my thumbnail and I just wiggle it right there between the bead and the crimp, and that's where I want it to be, because that's going to give me enough room, enough wiggle room to be able to crimp it without it either crushing the bead or without it being too tight. And so I've got enough room to fit my crimper in between the bead and the crimp. So just like with the other one, you crimp down once and then you rotate it so you've got a different angle, and you crimp down again, rotate and crimp, rotate and crimp, rotate and crimp, and I'm opening and closing it each time I do, and that gives you your nice rounded crimp. And you've got a little bit of room still between that bead and the crimp, and that's fine. That's what you want. You don't want your crimp to be right up next to your bead, because then your necklace will be too tight. You can go ahead and cut your excess, and then you've got a necklace. All right, guys. Now, my winter sunrise necklace is finished. I'm going to finish my winter sunrise painting, and I'm going to go grab that. I'm going to move this bead mat out of the way. I'm going to stick this around my neck because I like wearing things that I make, and it is so pretty. Just putting it on feels right. It just feels right, guys. All right, let's get our painting down here. Let's get this project done. And here we go. If you recall where we left off, everything is dry. I have just some highlights on the mountains. I'm going to be adding shadows later. That's probably the last thing that I'm going to do. I still have some paint in here. Most of it's dried, but that's okay because it's watercolor, so it'll reactivate with water. Let me make sure I've got my brushes. All right, so these are the ones that I'm going to be using from here on out. Instead of my large one, I've got my small round 0 for some of my details. And this is the brush that I'm going to be painting my trees with. And that's my next step. I'm going to be painting these trees, and they're gonna seem like they're just like, hello, I'm a tree, because they're gonna be like the brightest and biggest thing that you can see. And that's just because we're going to be doing our shadows in the snow while my trees are drying. So I'm gonna grab some water, and I am going to grab some of this green over here, and I am going to start making some trees, and I'm gonna go ahead and reactivate some of this, but not all of it. Make sure I've got that good. And I'm just tipping this to the side, so instead of being flat like that, it's over here on the side, so I can get a few lines. Trees don't always grow straight. Some of them grow to the side, some of them are taller, some of them are longer, and I'm just gonna tap in some lines for the beginning of some of our trees. Because these are a little bit farther away, they are going to be a little bit fainter. And I'm just going to tap in. Are you ready for some happy little trees? From the side, and this is at this side. I'm just tapping in some little pine tree shapes. Again, they're far away, so they don't have to be 100% exact. You could have like little blobs kind of out there in between. You don't know if there's some trees back there between or in front of or behind some of these guys. And also, it may seem really far out there, but we are going to be adding snow to our trees later, so it's okay if they are very bright green right now, because we are going to be adding some dimensionality to this. So far, so tree. I need a little more water and a little more paint. And we're just gonna keep going. I'm gonna do as many trees as my heart desires till I feel like I have enough. Oh, that is not enough paint, and that is a little too. Out there. And I thought y'all have seen a forest before. But trees are not always perfectly manicured like they are in parks when you get out to the wild parts of our planet. So they're going to get a little bit taller up here because they're going to be closer to us. Those guys are in the distance. These guys are a little bit closer. And I'm just doing my lines. They don't have to be the skinniest lines. If I want some skinny lines, I could grab that round 0, actually. You know what? Getting a little closer. Let's do more tree branches out here. This part of the forest, things might be a bit darker because they are closer to us. Because we are the viewers. We are looking at this scene, this snowy, mountainy scene. And I need more green. Get some more green out of this. All right, here we go. I have no idea what my dog is eating. Natalie, Riley, what are you eating? Is it a toy? I hope it's a toy. She doesn't eat her toys, she chews on them. She's smarter than that. All right. Let's keep going. More of our forest. You know, you could, not all pine trees have pointy tops. Some of them have bent over tops because when an eagle makes their nest in the top of a pine tree, they bend the tops down. I don't know if you guys have seen any pine trees out there and you looked at them and you're like, why does that look like somebody tried to sit on the top of that tree? It's all bent down there like that. It's probably because an eagle made their nest there. You see it a lot in the Pacific Northwest. With that kind of a treeness. Not as much in like the Intermountain West. There you go. And just switching real quick to this round zero. For better lines. And more detail as we get closer in here. All right. I'm gonna still need to go over here to the other side in a minute after we get the rest of these guys painted in. You know, remember Bob Ross? He is someone that I used to watch all the time, especially if I was homesick from school. Bob Ross was one of the best things to watch on PBS ever. He always made you just feel a little bit better about life, about yourself, about just letting things happen and letting things be. And that's one of the reasons that I like watercolors, because you kind of have to be like, okay, I'm okay with that happening. I'm okay with that being the way that it is. Because for me at least, it's not about controlling the paint. It's about letting go and letting the paint do part of the work for that art out there. All right, let's get a few more lines on that side. More lines. Let's paint our little branches on our little trees. Happy little trees, y'all. Happy little trees. Sorry, my hand is a little bit in the way of that. These mountains will pop a little bit more when we get our shadows on them. But that'll probably be the last part that we do. Though I might do the mountain shadows before I do the snow on the trees. Let's see. Let's see where we get. Oh, need more green. I'm running out of that color. Isn't this just the perfect color for trees? For these kinds of trees? I think this might be all our trees. Let me just do a little bit cleanup work. Just over there. With my liner brush. It's not really a liner, it's too short to be a liner. But there we go. Just adding a little more depth to the tree colors. So it's not all just one uniform color of green. All right, this is gonna be lots of fun once we get to the rest of it. You can still see that glow, can't you? I think it's still there. All right. Now let's get our shadows going. Gotta rinse off the green from my brush. Pick up a little more of this Payne's gray. So we're ready to go. And I'm just gonna plop some water in here from that brush. Because this one doesn't hold a ton of water, and I would be adding water for a long time to get these lighter values that I'm looking for my shadows. Now, where are my shadows going to be? They can be anywhere I want, but I am going to start with a line of shadow right here at the edge of my little forest. is a clearing, and my light is coming from this direction, so I want my shadows to stretch out. Come on, buddy. In this direction. Why are you green? I need to get all that green off of there and clean water. Come on, buddy. All right, now if I want to decide where a snowdrift is going to be, I'm going to end my shadow where that snowdrift is. So there should be a nice sharp line from there. And maybe we've got another snowdrift over here, but the thing about the snowdrifts is on the other side of the snowdrift, there's going to be a shadow. That shadow will go until it bumps into another shadow or another snowdrift. And you'll have another shadow. Just gonna plop a couple shadows over here, stretching out to there. Maybe we've got a snowdrift right here, a shadow coming along here on the front. Maybe we've got another one over here. There's a hard line where that is. Because there's a couple of different. You can put your snowdrifts any way you want. I've seen snowdrift in the weirdest ways. I tell ya. I've seen it. I'm just gonna deepen some of my shadow closer into the trees. Except for a couple of lighter spots where maybe we've got some shadows going there, and maybe we have a couple spots here where something went around behind this snowdrift. Maybe after they went behind this one, they kept going over here. Turned around over there, sniffed a few things. Maybe they went all the way up there. I'm having some fun. I hope you guys are too. I mean, I could play around with shadows and snow forever and ever. Let's see, there's a good spot for a snowdrift. Oh, it's a little too dark. Let's see if we can lift that a little bit. Might be done with some of my drifts. Just gonna soften some of my edges a little bit. Okay, so we've got our snow in the foreground. Let's add some shadows to our mountains so they're a little more bloom. There's a mountain. So our trees are almost dry enough that we can start adding our snow, but I need just a little more food. And for the mountains, I do not want my big fat guy. Instead, rinse that off. Let's get our smaller one. All right. All right, so for mountains, you're gonna have shadows. Especially if the light is coming from this way, most of it is going to be in shadow, except for the ridges that have the light hitting them and bare rock that doesn't have the snow on it. So let's just see if we got some ridge lines. And that is way too many lines. Let's blend some of these out with some water. This side of this mountain should all be in shadow, like all of it. That should be in shadow. Some of these should also be in shadow. All right. There we go. Now I've got one that's a little closer in. And we've got a ridge line over here and then shadow back here. There's another ridge line here that I planned. I say ridge line here, but that's because it's what's happening in my head. This mountain guy. Okay, and there's going to be a shadow here. And then it's going to blend out this direction until it goes up, meets the rest of that bit. There we go. It's a little more mountainy, and I've got a couple guys over here that we're gonna want to just maybe actually, I don't know what we're gonna do with these guys. Did I plan for that? I don't know if I planned for that. Very, 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 very faint purples, because the sun is directly behind them. With a couple of ridges. There we go. Just off in the distance. All right, and this one's a little bit closer, so we can get more shadow. Again, the light is on the other side of it, so it's just going to be our ridge lines that are going to have light on them. And rest is going to be gray, or rocky areas. And I'm running into my greens, but that's okay. That's fine. There we go. There's a little bit of mountainy goodness behind our trees. And now my trees are dry. Let's get our white gouache out and start adding some snow to the branches of our trees. Because we are almost done, guys. Home stretch. I am going to plop a little dollop of this buddy right in here where the yellow, the golden, or sorry, the Quinacridone Gold is, because I don't want just plain, whoa, there is way too much gray in it. Actually, no, I think that's going to be fine. Actually, that's going to mix right in. And it's going to have a lot of these other colors that are in here. So it's not just plain white. It's going to be a white with a little bit of that hint of yellow. Actually, that's probably too much white for this. So let's grab a little more of the yellow from the palette. Because if this light is hitting all the snow, so it's got that same golden, warm golden glow, then all the snow, including the snow on the trees, should have a little bit of that golden glow to it. There we go. Not too yellow, just a little yellow. Just really, really lightly. Lightly yellow. All right, now. Just gonna dot it along the tops of my trees. just the top. So whatever the branches are, and I can make up whatever the branches are because I am the artist. So some of this white is going to be from the paper. Some of it is from the gouache. Oh, that is very thick. I need it a little bit waterier. Not too watery because then it won't be opaque anymore. I'm rolling it so that I don't get too much on my brush at once. Whew. All right, I'm gonna add more snow, 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 more snow. Is it too much snow? Is it not enough? I don't know. We'll find out. Let's get a little bit of, oh, that needs a much finer line than I'm getting with that. Let's get some snow. Dotting snow over here. You know what? I'm not getting a real fine line. And my dog is starting to die of hunger. She is just absolutely starving. I'm just gonna add a couple more drifts in here in the over the shadows while I'm over there. These are very thick blobs of wash. I need a finer line. I think this is one of the reasons why I don't like that wash in particular. It's because it is globby until, and unless that's what I'm using. So all right, I am switching to this brush so that I can get a better application of my snow just on the tops of some of my branches and my trees. Oh, Ellen. And we can fix some of these lines that go in there. Just cover that up with some of the gouache. That's the nice thing about gouache is you can clean some things up with it if you need to. Still very all right, guys. All right. I think I'm gonna call it painted. So I have a winter landscape painting with a very soft and subtle golden glow on my snow. are okay. Some hard lines I'm gonna just smooth out there. Winter landscape with some beautiful pine greens. I'm gonna grab my little marker and I'm gonna sign this. Take off my necklace so you can see both all together. And even though it isn't completely finished, I'm gonna pull the tape off, because one of the reasons I like to tape things, especially when I'm using like really light values, is so that when you pull it away, you can see where the paper ends and the painting begins. Because otherwise, it might just look like you're just didn't do anything to that paper. All right. So here's our winter painting. I hope you enjoyed watching me do that. And I hope you enjoyed watching me make a necklace with my Gemstone Orphanage adoptee, Kirsi. Hope you guys are having a great day. I hope you're staying cozy. I know a lot of places in the US right now are having some weather with a capital W. It has finally got cold here in Texas. It feels like winter. So we are having that happen to us now. But yeah, anyway, I will talk to you guys later.